Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah, good morning, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
5 minutes till we meet. Whatever questions you have, please go ahead. I'm very sorry. Yesterday there was a huge lineup of things for me, so I couldn't really respond to you. So yeah. So I think basically your question was regarding the presentation part of it.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Group presentation, you wanted pointers.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, yeah.
So now this presentation that you have to do, it is regarding strategy formulation and it is regarding strategy implementation. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So it is regarding strategy formulation and strategy implementation.
Yeah.
So now if you the module 2 when we did and module 1 also when we did, we have completed 2 modules, as in a little bit of 2 is remaining, so I will complete this in another as until 8:30 I think we should be done with it. And thereafter I'm going to start the third module. Now when you see your PPT of module 2 or module 1, and we'll be starting with module 3 today. If you see those PPTs, you have strategy formulation, you have vision, mission. As M1, you have vision, mission, strategy. M2, you have strategy formulation. M3 as strategy implementation, and then M4 as strategy review, evaluation, and control. Okay. Now, in the very third slide, you have these. In each of the PPTs, you have these modules which are listed, and below that you have what the modules comprise of. I will not speak about strategy implementation, that we will do a little later, but talking about strategy implementation formulation, sorry, it starts with and it is given as the third slide that you have. It's given establish organizations objectives and long-term goals, number 1 in strategy formulation. Then you have external environment assessment. Do you have, anybody has the PPT or should I show you? I can display this to you actually. Wait. See, can everybody see this? Yeah?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, yeah.
So you have strategy formulation here and you have strategy implementation. Strategy formulation has establishing of organizations, objectives and long-term goals. You have external environment assessment, you have internal environment assessment, and then you have strategic analysis and choices. All this we have done in module 2, and we will be doing in strategy implementation. We will be doing challenges in strategy implementation, guidelines for strategy implementation, the process, and also how application of emotional intelligence helps. Now, how do you go about making your presentation? How many of you are there? 20 of you are there now. So I think we can have groups of 4.
Yes, ma'am. It's already done.
It's already done. So
yeah,
how many?
Yeah. 5 groups, 4 each.
5 groups, which is already done. Now, each of the group, how much time generally do you decide? Is it decided or I have to decide that?
Ma'am, we have decided 8th June as the date of presentation. That is next Tuesday.
The duration of each presentation.
Okay, that is 15 minutes normally we have for other.
Fine. So around 15 to 20 minutes, that is the time that you have, 15 minutes basically. So you present in 15 minutes. Yeah. So you have to present. So these are the pointers which are already given to you. So you have to select your organization. You have to, say what is its, organization's objectives or long-term goals, whatever that they have, and then just do external environment assessment. We have done various tools for external environment assessment. Pick up one tool. Don't go and pick up 10 tools for that or whatever we have done. No, just one tool. one tool for external environment, one tool for internal environment, and then you can establish whether it is a then you can give your strategic analysis, whether it is an attractive whatever the report, whatever your takeaway from that entire analysis of doing this identification of opportunities, identification of threats, that will come out of the external environment, the SWOT analysis, basically, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So when you assess your internal environment, you'll come to know the strengths and weaknesses, and then the external environment, you'll come to know about the opportunities and threats. And then also you can say whether you can make a small report and sort of just to predict, just to forecast whether the industry is attractive, what are the challenges, and then whatever you pick up. Now we are going to do in if I have another lecture, then maybe I can when is 8th of June?
Ma'am, next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Let's see how much we are able to cover. I will try to do as much as possible. And that you can include. I think we should be, if I have another lecture with you in this week, if we can plan, then we can, then we can sort of, I think, finish this strategy implementation. We will try to do that as much as possible, and that you can include in your implementation part of it. So these pointers are given, just go through your PPTs. You will have a correct flow. Just keep making your choices as per the industry or the organization that you choose. Is it clear to all? You can give your questions and queries in between also to Ujjwala, but I don't think generally you will have any problems if you look at these pointers. You don't have to include everything. It is not some in 15 minutes you have to make all the heads and all the no. Whatever you feel is industry, your organization specific, only pick up that. You don't have to just go about, okay, this is there, so we have to include this, have to include. No, not required. Whatever is required for you to make a good presentation of 15 minutes, that how the strategy was formulated, what are the objectives. See, we have to keep some objective in mind. So, because if there is an objective, then only the strategy will be formed. Whenever any strategy is formed, you will always do planning as per the environment analysis, the internal and the external environment analysis. That is what you're going to do and present. And then how that strategy, if implemented, or if it was implemented, it can be done both ways. You can pick up some example from the past and try to see how it was done, or you can design something of your own and then say that how it is going to happen. It can happen both ways. So then if you say that this we have picked up, this we feel we will do, we have done some strategy formulation, this is how we are going to implement, and these are certain challenges that we feel that they can arise out of this, and these are probable solutions or something like that. So just make a 15-minute thing. Don't go overboard with the whole thing that you have to present everything, all the headlines. No, just your organization specific. Is it clear to all? Ujjwala, any other question or query that you have?
So, ma'am, it should be for the organization, not for the industry, right? Because in the assignment, it is at an industry. Select the industry.
You will, until and unless you read about the industry, you will not be able to scan the external environment. If you are talking about, say, for example, Maruti or Nestle, I'm giving you an example. I think you asked me whether we can take up that organization. If you are doing that to study the external environment, it becomes essential for you that you look at the FMCG as an industry, the external environment, competitors. Even if you're doing porters for that, you need to know your competition.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not saying that you present that, but without knowing your industry, your organization does not operate in isolation.
Yes.
So I need to know that this is the environment that is, in order to scan the environment, I need to do the industry. I'm not asking you to present that, but for your
Okay.
knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Got
even in your presentation, that comparison can come. That this is whatever, whichever way, that liberty and freedom I give it to you. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other question? Okay, so looking at this, we have done the, when we were doing business strategy and SBUs, we have done the generic strategies when we were talking about the three generic strategies, the cost leadership, differentiation, focus, which came like this to us. And of course, we did the, yeah. So this is what we did when we were doing the generic strategy. And along with this, we also did the strategy clock. And then these are interactive strategies, that this is what I have to do today with you. Interactive strategies generally, we don't give to apply. These only come, in a short, maybe a very short note on that. So if you have to dive deep and do a detailed analysis for this particular subject, you can look for generic strategies. Interactive strategy, I will only give you a overview of that, and you just have to keep these concepts in mind. So if there is any short note or anything, then you can attend to that. We will not be applying these strategies, because then it is this thing. These three strategies will take another 4 lectures from you, and it is not in the so much required also. Okay. We don't have any slide. I can't see any slide for hyper competition. Of course, there is one video which I can see. So I will just introduce this concept to you. So hyper competition, as the name suggests, it is a condition, when the competition is intensified in the industry, in the marketplace. And the competition is intensified to that extent that it creates a sort of instability in the market. That is hyper competition. So the companies, there are certain conditions which require companies to change their strategies continuously, because their competition is just, basically, this whole idea of strategy is like a chessboard. So the moment the competition keeps changing their strategies, I have to keep changing my strategy. So hyper competition is basically, it's a condition when the competition is very intense, and it sort of creates an instability in the market, so much so that the companies have to change their strategies continuously. Companies generally maneuver with each other, so that changing market dynamic, the changing market dynamics can change quickly. Now, as a result, what happens is that the strategic competitiveness of the company, of a particular organization, the competitive advantage that we talk about, there are chances that it can disappear immediately or very quickly. Because whatever I do, my competition is just doing it better. It could be anything. It could be the positioning that I have created basis the quality that I offer or the prices that I offer. Maybe I have made my competency and I have arrived at competitive advantage because of the positioning of quality that I have created. We have already spoken about uh, create a competitive advantage. What are the two things in which way we can create competitive advantage? We can write in the chat box. Two ways in which we can create a competitive advantage quickly. We have done this many a times. Yes. So as Ujjwala says and Shilpi also says uniqueness and Ujjwala says cost advantage. Doing something unique is what Iron says. Yes. So two ways, either it is cost advantage or it is differentiation advantage. These are the ways in which we create uniqueness into the system. So when I talk about creating competitive advantage, then also it may be some technical know-how that I have. It may be my efforts for acquiring new knowledge. It may be the efforts to protect or attack any existing market any existing geography or product or market. If I'm trying to do existing market with existing product, what is the strategy that I would use? Quickly. Existing product, existing market. Existing, yeah, ANSOF matrix. But what strategy do we apply? In ANSOF matrix, you are right. But in ANSOF matrix, what do we do for existing product and existing market? Which is a strategy that we apply? Market penetration. Okay. Existing market, new product. Ujjwala, you are not writing now. Existing market, new product. Product development. Okay. So somewhere we have understood. Yes. Fine. So basically, when we are talking about hyper competition, it is generally the characteristics of that are that there is intense rivalry in the market, or there are very low. Okay, another question. If there is high level of rivalry and there is high competition, what about the in the Porter's five forces? What do you think is does that particular industry offer a low entry barrier or a high entry barrier? If there is a very high hyper competition is about high level of rivalry. So the intensity, the middle quadrant that we had, intensity of rivalry is very high. If the intensity of rivalry is high, what do you think? As an industry, it's a low barrier industry or a high barrier industry? Shilpi says low barrier industry. Anybody else? It's a low barrier or a high barrier industry? Have you understood the question? If it is a high intensity of rivalry leading to hyper competition, is the threat of entrance that quadrant we will have? Okay, Shivani says low barrier. Very correct. So there will be low barrier to entry. Then only allowing so many new players to enter and challenge the existing companies, isn't it? So low barrier of entry leading to a lot of new players who can easily enter into the industry and challenge the existing companies, because of which there is a high level of rivalry leading to hyper competition. So strategic maneuvers in such a space, they occur very fast, they are very intense, they are very unexpected. There will be rapid technological changes, structural changes, all the flexibility of the entire the adoption of flexible strategies is very common. Why? Because the competitive landscape is changing so rapidly. And in fact, if you see the industry today, we are more or less into hyper competition. Every now and then something or the other is happening. So if we talk about all the new and emerging industries, can anybody give one very thriving example these days of hyper competition? To a large extent, this particular industry has been insulated from the pandemic. It has had its downs, no doubt. E-commerce, yes. As Vaibhav says, e-commerce, of course, pharma also, but e-commerce has been an industry which has seen hyper competition, not only last 1.5 year, but in starting from maybe 4 or 5. It's been 5 years, 6 years since this particular space is seeing hyper competition. Very correct. And it has been by and large the most insulated space as far as pandemic is concerned, because whatever expected consumer behavior changes which the industry needed, that automatically happened. Half of it happened because of demonetization, another thing happened because of whatever we are seeing in last 2 years, 1.5 2 years. These are black swans of industry. These occurrences which happen, these are black swans. These are not something that happen every time and every day. In fact, pandemic that we are seeing, we have never seen such a thing before. In World War II, the number of people who died who lost their lives in USA, now many more people have lost their lives in US in what we saw in world wars also. So this is once in a lifetime kind of a scenario that we are seeing, but this particular industry has been insulated from that also. So that is hyper competition. Let's see what comes our way. Really wonder this video is working. Yeah, it is.
A disruption of hyper competition. Given the presence.
Is it audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Of SCA at the core of the two primary theories of strategic management. It should come as no surprise that the reaction to Dalveni's 1994 book 11 was not nearly as positive in the academic community as it was among working managers. One of Dalveni's fundamental arguments about the effects of hypercompetition was that it makes sustaining competitive advantages increasingly difficult, if not impossible. Therefore, firms and managers needed to be more adaptable and learn to both disrupt other firms' advantages and also to concatenate shorter term competitive advantages of their own together if they wanted to maintain higher levels of profits and economic performance over time. Proponents of SCA disagreed, such as Porter, who said in many industries, however, what some call hypercompetition is a self inflicted wound, not the inevitable outcome of a changing paradigm of competition. 1-2, and went on to argue that it is likely limited to only some firms in high technology industries. Shortly after publication of his book, Dalveni served as a guest editor at Organization Science, a well-respected management scholarly journal, for 2 special issues that focused on new organizational forms and strategies for managing in hyper-competitive environments. 13. The lead article in the first issue was a large-scale empirical study by Thomas, 14, who found evidence of a hyper-competitive shift in 200 manufacturing industries during the period from 1958 to 1991. This was expanded in a later, more comprehensive study to cover 1950 to 200,215. Other empirical articles in the first special issue found evidence consistent with hypercompetition in the software industry. 16 showed processes by which 10 divisions of a large multinational high-tech company dealt with hypercompetition. 17 examined diversification of semiconductor startups. 18 looked at hypercompetitive new product introductions in the Japanese beer industry. 19 studied hypercompetitive escalation and de-escalation in the U.S. airline industry. 20 and modeled concatenating advantages, eating your own lunch before someone else does. 21. The second special issue focused on theoretical extensions to existing theories to try to accommodate hypercompetition, including flexibility and adaptation. 22 organizational capability as knowledge integration. 23 strategic flexibility. 24 vertical integration and rapid response. 25 regional learning networkability. 27 and ended with an interesting and far-ranging discussion of spontaneous organizational reconfiguration based on Xenophon's anabasis. 28 These special issues demonstrate that some management scholars did perform research to find empirical evidence of hypercompetition, or extend existing theories to accommodate it. Other scholars sought evidence to try to refute it. 29 For an overview of the main theoretical and empirical arguments on both sides, as well as a study offering considerable empirical support to the concept of hypercompetition, see the 2005 Strategic Management Journal article by Wiggins and Rueffle, 30, which not only covers most of the hypercompetition arguments, but also summarizes much of the related extensive literature on the persistence of economic performance. Although strategic management scholars may have been somewhat resistant to the idea of hypercompetition, scholars in the wider field of general management and other related business fields realized that if the predictions of hypercompetition were true, then their research and prescriptions needed to adapt. This led to articles on the effects of hypercompetition on a wide range of subjects, including relationship marketing, 31 managerial cognition, 32 financial services, 33 enterprise integration, 34 project management, 35 change management, 36 adaptive supply chains, 37 and managerial mindsets. 38.
Okay. The next one in line is your cooperative strategy. These are all interactive. You know why they are known as interactive strategies? These are interactive strategies because they are all talking about any organization I do not exist in isolation. There is competition, and my competition affects me. That is why that makes it these strategies interactive. My decision, my strategy is dependent upon what the other competition is doing. That is why these are interactive strategies. So another in line of this interactive strategy is your cooperative strategy, and it refers to basically planning of strategy in which two or more firms work together in order to achieve a common objective. Now, there are several companies, which you will feel that they apply these cooperative strategies to increase their profits through cooperation with other companies. That basically, those companies, they stop being competitors, but they join hands together so that they can work towards the common objective. Basically, the aim is to realize a company's objective through cooperation with other firms by and there are various strategies for that. It may be by entering into strategic alliances like what we talk about Toyota and Maruti in our earlier discussion. That is a strategic alliance that they have entered into, or you enter into partnerships. So rather than through competition with them, it is better that we have alliances and partnerships with the companies so that we can progress together. And these days this strategy also works a lot, and you must have seen a lot of alliances taking place, because I may be having something which is my core competency, the other one also has some core competency, and together when we come, we become a more consolidated force, towards a common objective, than each one eating into the pie alone. And it has significant advantages, for companies that are basically lacking in particular competency or knowledge or resource, and enabling them to secure these through links to other companies. So when we were talking about banks being turning into fintech, so being a bank, my my strength is into financial services. I want to get technology into it to become a fintech. I hired the services of maybe Infosys, Satyam, or anybody, Wipro, or any such outfit, and then collaborate and do the things so that I can just concentrate upon my whatever I do best, and rest of the things can be taken care of. So I enter into a strategic alliance with these, or partnerships, or collaborations, so that we can work together. Is it clear to all? That is about cooperative strategy. Then another thing is your game theory. Has anybody read game theory anywhere? Are there any mathematics students here, or economics? Okay. So when you will, if you will search about game theory in economics, game theories are there in economics, game theories are there in mathematics, game theories are also there in business strategy. So my sincere advice to all of you is, if you are going for any Google searches, and if you're trying to gather material or anything, please look for game theory in business strategy. Don't look for game theory in economics and mathematics. You will get confused. That is what I want to, because that is generally what students do. They just write game theory and anything comes up, and then they are confused. "Ye to kiya nahi hai, this looks too many numbers." So it's nothing like that. We will just try to see this in a very brief way. Now, what is game theory? Game theory, as the name suggests, it is nothing but A player's strategy in any of the options that they wish they choose in setting up where the outcome depends not only on their own actions. Remember, it's an interactive strategy. So the outcome does not depend upon what I do. The outcome also depends upon the actions that are done by others. So the behavior that my competition exhibits or the action that my competition, does, or whatever they undertake, that has a bearing, direct or indirect, on whatever I do. Is it clear to all of you? So that is in principle what is game theory. So there are a lot of, there are a lot of frameworks which are available, which tells us how to, if your competition behaves in a particular way, then how we have to behave, especially when it comes to optimizing your marketing campaigns. There are basically decisions which are taken to wage wars almost. Or there are, various, if you are coming up with some new product with a particular features, and there can be various ways. So basically, if you want to understand game theory, it is nothing but how and why people make some decisions. There are of course mathematical models for that, but we are not getting into that. Game theory is applied everywhere. It's there in science, it's there in politics. It's basically what the others do, I think already about that, and then make a decision. Or whatever action I have to do, my outcome will depend upon that. My request is, please do not go for any kind of anything related to your mathematics or your your economics. You just have to remember, in strategy, game theory is basically used to study how strategic decision making is done. Various, thought processes, they come together, and then these game theories are made. There is one very popular concept here, and that is of prisoner's dilemma. That one concept definitely you can try to understand, but it is not really required. That is also one of the, then there are matching pennies, there are deadlocks, there are various strategies, but we won't get into that. For your understanding, I think this should be enough. You really don't have to go into too much of detail of all this. So basically, as our slide also says, game theory encourages an organization to consider competitors' likely moves and the implication of these moves for our own strategy. It is interdependence basically exists where choices made by one competitor is dependent on the choice made by another competitor. Any examples that can come your that comes your way?
Ma'am,
Yes.
McDonald's and Burger King.
How?
Uh, Now, it was said that McDonald's burgers are very small in size, so Burger King started, this Whopper, so it is big in size and so, like that, to change that.
They wherever there is intense competition, this game theory exists. But is there an interdependence there? That
Yes,
my choice will affect your choice.
yeah,
Of
it
course.
is.
This, yes.
In game theory, it has to be because the whole theory is based on the other, but like the
What
competitor.
others do.
Yeah.
Yes. So what basically what you're trying to do is that you are trying to consider your competitors' moves, the likely moves, and how those likely moves will have implication of on your strategy. and then design your strategy accordingly. That is
Yes.
the basic assumption. So they say that, you know, your lose-lose kind of competition, you lose and I lose,
Yes.
both lose if we do something, or then if we apply game theory and if we are able to understand what the other is doing, then the whole game becomes a win-win thing for both of us. Any other example that comes to your mind, to anybody's mind? That when others did something, I thought it will have a bearing upon my this thing, and then we changed.
Airtel,
Sorry.
Airtel company.
In fact, I would
Airtel and Jio. Like
Geo did, and then Airtel followed.
yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other comparison? Anything? Anything that comes to your mind?
I'm in the malls or supermarkets when initially Big Bazaar was there and Reliance started. So they used to have that Wednesdays, economic Wednesdays. So when Reliance came, they also started because Wednesday was there in the people's mind and it literally captured the Big Bazaar. Like in our area, there was a Big Bazaar, and when Reliance opened, it had to shut down. So
What had to shut down?
the Big Bazaar shut down.
Big
It
Bazaar
was
shut
not
down.
win-win, but then the Reliance did exactly what Big Bazaar was doing, and
But was it a win-win for both?
no, it was not win-win.
So
In
that
that
is
one, yeah.
yeah. So that is any other kind of, but when it is a win-win situation for all, then it becomes an interactive strategy, some cooperation, something. So I come to a common understanding that instead of fighting in the same arena, it's okay, we will coexist. Because whatever the one person will do, the other one, if does not change their strategy accordingly, they will start eating into each other. So we don't want that kind of cannibalization to happen. Okay, so the likely moves of one organization
Ma'am,
has implication on the moves of other one. So I also change. There is a cooperation there. We are not cutting into each other.
Ma'am, it will not be legally, it will be fine to do that. Like I'm also changing because of the other company and my competitor is changing this particular thing.
Why not? What is legal about that?
Taking some, I'm copying some the marketing this one or something very.
Imitation is the most standard thing.
ma'am,
I
like
may not have the same buyer, I may not have the same this thing, but then imitation does happen. If you look at ghee, most of the ghee, it comes out of dynamics industry. Just go and read the packets. All of them, most of them, they might be labeled as Britannia, they might be labeled as Nestle, they might be labeled as whatever labels that they have. And I'm talking about the general, the general this thing. I'm not talking about those boutique ones, the organic ones. I'm not talking which comes out of small. They are all coming out of one thing. So is it legally wrong? No, somebody is. I'm branding it my way. There is nothing like legal or illegal in imitation. Anybody can do that. If that wouldn't have been the case, and if legally that could have been challenged, then there would have been no substitution, isn't it? Because substitution exists because of imitation.
Mari biscuits, that Britannia Mari, this
Yeah,
McVitie's
Mari
Mari, a
was
lot
the
of
original thing. After that, now just see how many Maris are there and the
yeah.
replicas of Mari are there. There are n number of Maris now.
ma'am,
May
like the
I,
companies.
may I
Styles and
add?
packaging. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Priyanka, unless and until there is any design or
patent or copyright infringement, it's legal.
Yes.
So one example, like Godrej came up with door cooling technology. So LG came up with 5 ways cooling. Other than door, they cooled everything. So that is one example where we can consider. But yeah, legalities that also can become the strategy used by some other competitor. They can sue if they find that we have patented particular technology and other is using that without taking
Without their
the proper
permission.
permission and all that.
Yes. It's only in the case of copyrights and patents, but not otherwise. So here, when we are talking about, we are more talking about, the product features, the strategies that are being used. I mean, that is not, there is nothing illegal about that.
Ma'am, product features come, I mean, product design also comes under that intellectual property rights. So
Yes.
there we find issue.
Hmm.
Ma'am, like for example, that companies like Colgate bringing up gel kind of thing, and same thing was done by Pepsodent also. So that also comes under this.
See, what we are discussing here is not the other person changing the thing to cannibalize into others. Here, what we are saying is that we are trying to understand other person's move, so that and what that move will have, how that move will have implication on my strategy, and then change my strategy accordingly. Here we are not talking about infringements, and if it is an infringe, then how, if we are talking about infringements and if we are talking about illegalities, then we are not acting in a cooperative way. These are interactive things that somebody else, what they are doing, I am also trying to do something that that complements the whole thing. Of course, there are very narrow lines between these concepts. You just have to understand this. So it's basically about anticipating the probabilities and the expected outcomes, and then making your counter moves. It's just like a chessboard. How do you play chess? How many of you play chess? Does anybody play chess? Priyanka, you play chess and you are asking this. Then you should understand, you should tell all of us about game theory.
Yeah, as you said rightly, every move is being monitored by opposite. Yeah.
Exactly. It is as simple as that. Every move you have to, क्या करते हो आप चेस खेलते वक्त, आप दूसरे के मूव समझते हो. Not only this move that you are playing, maybe 10 more moves, and then you make your move. This is exactly like a chess game, and nothing more than that. You should have told us all these things, Priyanka, instead of asking. Okay.
Ma'am, Ma'am, just a doubt, like if a company is changing its product or updating its product within the company, like they're not looking out for competitors, so it will not be considered under the game theory. But if they're only looking with the perspective of competitor, then only we will say, right, that it's game theory is coming in picture and they are looking and making the changes.
Who's speaking?
Ma'am,
Ishita.
Ishita. Yeah.
Okay, Ishita, can you please come again on your question?
Ma'am, I'm like confused. Like if there is a company and they are making changes within their product, and they are making changes like solely because they feel that they're not looking for any competitions or anything. So the game theory will not come in picture in this thing, but it will only come when they are looking for competition and then they are making the changes.
Whenever I'm looking at the likely moves of my competition and then changing my strategy, that is when it is game theory.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, got it, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
And in real scenarios, We really don't operate in isolation, isn't it? For some time, if we have a first mover advantage and we are doing things on our own, it's a brief period and we are good with that. But these days, it's a hyper competitive market. Before I come, maybe 10 people are thinking about the same thing and the market just gets, so competition is always there and we don't operate in isolation. That okay. So now we start with strategy implementation. Up till now, whatever we have done, is it clear to all of you? Because today I see that the class attendance is 19, which I have rarely seen. So the people who have not been regular with the lectures and all, I want to ask them, are you able to understand whatever is happening, whatever we have discussed? Are you in sync with the class? Because we have very few lectures left now. Aishwarya, Nikita is the one who has her fitness center.
No, ma'am. It's Saudamini.
It's
Saudamini.
so Sodami.
Sodamini.
Sodamini, is she there today? No. No, she's not there. Okay. Ishita, you yeah. What was her name? Ketaki, Sally, Aishwarya. Aishwarya, are you able to understand what we are doing? Or we have done whatever?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Daisy.
Ma'am, I'm trying to, but
Have you attended the lectures, most of them, or how is it?
yeah, I have attended, ma'am. Like a few I couldn't because of reasons.
Now, so
Whatever I otherwise I'm seeing the recordings. I'm trying to make notes.
okay, fine. But if you have any of you, Ketaki, are you understanding what we are doing in class?
Yes, ma'am. I've missed few classes, but I'll go through the LMS.
Yeah. Okay. But if you have any problems, any difficulties in anything, then please
Sure, ma'am.
keep
Yeah,
collaborating
sure.
them so that we can, maybe have one revision lecture or something like that if time permits. I can't assure that because there's lots to do, but then we can
Sure, sure.
design a mechanism how to do things. Okay, so please.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so now we start with the strategy implementation. And to this, I would say that most of the strategies that are designed, they fail at this stage. If they are not implemented properly, the best of strategies, in fact, it is said that 90% of the strategies fail at this stage. So there are a lot of challenges that we face. In fact, if you see in your real life also, we plan for so many things, but actually how many things are happen as we plan? There are always, ups and downs to whatever we plan and how they are executed. So the main problem happens in execution. So in this entire module 3, we are going to see and look at what are the challenges, what is the way in which strategies are planned, implemented, implementation and execute, not planned but executed, and what is the process and what are the challenges. This is what we are going to see when it comes to strategy implementation. So it is characteristics of strategy implementation, variables of strategy implementation, and the steps that are taken by top executives in strategy implementation. This is what we are going to see. So when we come to characteristics of strategy implementation process, I think the entire class, especially people who have work experience, they should contribute to the, when we are doing these slides. I'm sure all of you have a lot of examples for this. It is extremely important that strategy should not get relegated to the boardrooms. Lot of creativity and lot of ideation is done in the boardrooms. If it does not get the consensus, the support, the right execution from the last man in the organization, because everybody has a role to play, and we can take any number of examples from the successful companies. If each one does not understand what actually is going to be implemented and what is my role in that, be it a person who is a security at the security, or at any functional level, divisional level, SBU, the branch level, whichever, whatever, the CEO of the company, the board of directors, everybody should know what the strategy is and what is my role in it. Most of the times the strategy fails because I do not know what I have to do, how I have to contribute. And therefore, every manager needs to have an active role, because there is no proven formula for implementing any kind of strategy. There are the way we forecast, the way we predict, the way we design strategies. There are always, innumerable things which can happen and which can just come like black swans. Or black swan is a big event. It might just come anything from outside or inside, in the internal environment or the external environment, which just comes as a shock and a surprise, and the whole thing just goes topsy-turvy. So there are no proven formulas for implementing particular type of strategy, and therefore there are guidelines. There is a basic umbrella under which one operates, but we learn on the go. We make decisions on the go, and therefore decision making becomes very, very important when it comes to implementation of strategy. At each point of time, there are decisions to be made. What we pick, there will be n number of things that we will have to leave. Each has an opportunity cost to it. Each has its own, pros and cons. And therefore, one needs to keep making these choices. If my choice goes right, if my basis my and there are various ways of these decision making. So many times it's because of the instinct, and so many times it is because of some research that we have done, some models that we have applied. But there is no absolute way. It's always trial and error. And there are always many, many ways that we are capable of working and implementation. Strategy cuts across many aspects of how to manage. Each one has a different way to operate. And that is why I always say, when we have these vision statements and these mission statements that we have, these are not theories. If we keep them in front of us and then we go ahead, most of the successful organizations, you will realize that these things, they act like, you know, they act almost like those torch bearers, which just keeps us on track. So because strategy has various, challenges, this these things, these the objective setting and and how we navigate through it, it becomes very, very important. There are various situations that we face, the business practices and the competitive situations that we have, which is always there, work environment and culture in which we operate. Do you know what is a culture? What do we mean by culture? It plays a very, very big role when it comes to implementation of strategy. How do you define culture? What is culture? Anybody? The organization culture.
Ma'am, is it the way the people react to the situations they work, the values with which they work in the organization?
Yes, it's the values with
Yeah.
which, very nice. Anybody else? What is an organization culture? What is your understanding of that?
Ma'am, the procedures that they follow.
The procedures that they follow, yes.
How the resources have been utilized, like human resources, how they are treated, how the company's policies are in the benefit of people working in the organization,
So basically,
timing.
yes, yes. The punctuality part of it. How do you dress up? How do you, yeah, a lot of things, lot of external as well as internal things, lot of behavior things, the norms that we follow, the behavioral patterns that we exhibit. For example, a very simple thing like taking bribes, how transparent you are as an organization. कुछ ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के बारे में हम सुनते हैं सडनली हाँ यहाँ चलता है हो जाता है, that's the image of the organization. Our images are not formed just like that. There are reasons behind it. The culture of the organization might have been such that makes us believe like that. So work environment and culture plays a very big role. Sometimes, there are happy employees, satisfied employees, and sometimes, it is a bickering. Every employee has one story to tell of how, they didn't get their salaries on time, how they didn't, bonus was announced, but it was not given, for next 6 months. Some loss in the family happened, and how the company, the way they behaved with them. All this has a, recently I was looking at, I was listening to Uday Kotak, and I hope everybody knows Uday Kotak. He's the one who manages Kotak Bank and broking business and everything. A huge. He was talking about his employees and in the pandemic. He said, even if I have to forego my 1 year's profit, even if I have to, you know, if I'm not able to make the kind of profits, even if I lose my market share, even if I suffer losses, at any cost, I do not want to lose my employees in the pandemic. When the main founder of the company goes ahead and speaks like that, it builds a confidence in the entire organization. They have already lost a lot of their leaders, by the way. The main two people in the organization to, to the pandemic. few key ones. He said, I don't want to lose anybody else. Even if everything suffers, the business suffers, it will again come back. So, what is a work environment? And yet, I have seen organizations, even in peak of pandemic, they were hell-bent that everybody should report to office. I know so many organizations. I know an organization who, I mean, they kept calling their employees and they said, if everybody is going to come, then maybe a local herd immunity will come. And because of this, so many people got infected. Few of them lost their lives also. If they didn't lose their lives, maybe somebody at home because of the infection and so many things. And it was made a thing that you have to come to office. And there were counterparts of the people who, and that in a service industry, there is so many times no need that everybody should come, and that was not the business in which everybody, but the insecurity that if they are going to sit at home, nothing is going to work. So what is the work environment? My own policies that I have, the compensation incentives. I work so hard but I don't get much. If I will work hard, I will be compensated. The confidence, all these, they bring about a lot, they help in strategic implementation. The personalities, the histories which are there, if you talk about if you talk about Tata, there would be some image that will come to your mind of the kind of personalities that were associated with that. There was one company by the name of Nirma, if you know. You know Nirma? Washing powder Nirma. So it always used to be said that the Karsan Bhai who had founded the company, he actually started his life on a cycle, and it is said that his stories of his hard work, they actually used to roll out in the organization. These things, they instill a kind of a sense of spirit, a kind of spirit, a kind of it enthuses people when you see your main person working hard. The whole environment changes like that. I always say that I have to first dirty my hands, then only my employees will get motivated to work. I first have to start working hard myself and become a role model. So we will continue our discussion. We will just take a 15-minute break at this point and we will meet again.
This one more is
Welcome back. Did you have human resource management as have you read that as a subject
In
in
our
the
first semester, ma'am, we had it.
okay, fine, good. So let's see what comes up. So these are strategy implementation variables. So first is staffing leadership style, then is structure, organization structure, then there are reward systems, and then there is decision making process. So let's see quickly now. So what do we understand by recruitments? I want everybody to answer quickly.
Appointing people for various roles.
Then what is selection?
Ma'am, recruitment is something where we post vacancies that we have in the organization so that anybody can apply, and
Yeah,
accordingly we select among them whoever we find suitable for that
whoever we
position.
find suitable. So that is recruitment and selection. Recruitment is when we put the, so basically this entire process of recruitment and selection, if you want to summarize and if you want to see from the strategy point of view, then it is having right people at right time and at right place, which is very, 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 very important. So that is about recruitment and selection, having right person, and that is what retaining your people, maintaining your people, all that comes into this whole thing. Then other thing is transfer. Transfer we mean by promotion, and then again putting right people at the right place, and then training and development of leadership. This we are covering very quickly because I assume that you've done HRM. Any examples that you have and that you have seen in your work life of any of these where you felt for some time that these things are very important? Any of these aspects? Training and development is in, especially in IT field, I think Weber would agree with that because it's an ever changing field. This requires a lot of training and development. It's all training and development on the go. As in the obsolescence in this IT field is so high that at any given point of time, recently I was looking at one of the statistics which was given by TCS, and they said that the kind of budgets that they have only for training and development, sometimes it's a choice whether one really wants to put so much because they eat in a big way into the profits and ultimately whatever is the profit of the organization. So training and development, most of the, in fact, when I was doing my research in this, when I started in 2002 and I went to Wipro for my case study once at their site, and that is when I realized that they didn't even have a proper training and development cell, the outfit. And for at that, till that point of time, it never used to be human resource management. It mainly used to be admin kind of admin kind of a thing where you had all your payments were there, compensation was there, of course transfers were there, and all those things were there, but training and development was never given a lot of importance. But from that time till today, there has been a complete change in the landscape. And training and development, yes, makes a lot of difference when it comes to, and becomes very, very crucial when it comes to strategic implementation, because these days there is so much of new things that are happening, so one needs to be on the learning curve. Any example anybody wants to give? Anybody where you have seen this thing happening? Yes, Vaibhav, you want to say anything?
I just want to share that nowadays the trend is getting changed. People are not focusing more on training and development, because earlier we used to train people, they used to become competent about something and they used to quit or leave the company. Then they started giving such things like bond or agreements signed, but still people used to break those things. And uh, there, for younger generation, salary used to be the key thing. And then companies started focusing on the leadership styles and better culture to the people, better facilities to the things. But all big companies could do that, smallers could not do that. So all those things we observed in last 5 to 6, or we can say even 10 years.
The budget of the company, I would not say that training and development has evaporated. I think it
No.
holds a big position in most of the organizations. But at looking at the size of the company and the budget that the company has, so if it is a small startup and not many, they would rather than going in for training and development, they would rather go for right kind of recruitment and selection. So at, like it was said in the earlier slide also, not one formula fits all. So as per organizations, if it's a big outfit, then all this goes hand in hand. But if it's a small outfit, we will rather go for selecting right kind of people rather than going in for training and all, because training comes at a huge cost. Anybody wants to share anything else?
I'm Shivani here.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I do have experience of 15 years in L&D, I mean, learning and development training. And I've seen how the training divisions got established and how the budgets have increased. I mean, I have worked with giants like Reliance also, wherein there's a huge team of training, and the budget crosses 1 crore also for each format. If I talk about retail, and in retail, there is a huge demand for training because the attrition is really high. So there is continuous demand and supply, and the training has to happen there. And even now, when we talk about the leadership in pipeline, building a leadership in pipeline, L&D plays very important role when it comes to assessment centers and identify the succession planning and everything, and even the competency, because it starts with the gap identification. And in my years when I started, it was like just training for the call centers and all. But slowly, even the corporates, the small companies, they started with training part, because they identified if we train people, it's more of like people will stay back, they will understand that some value addition is happening. So if training is planned properly, keeping in mind what is the vision and mission of the company every year, and then the strategy is drafted and it is executed, I think it will be wonderful value addition that L&D can do. And it is, yes, it is considered to be a cost center, but it is more as of investment when it comes to building up the leadership.
And
Then
one has to look at that what is the percentage.
yes,
So the people who are getting trained and leaving, see, it's also a part of employee engagement. It also
absolutely.
builds a kind of belongingness that we care for you. So what percentage of people, so many times, I mean, it has been established that because of training and development, the employee turnover also goes down because we feel that we are relevant. I remember Netflix. Netflix used to always tell the employees, there was huge level of redundancy which was built into the system, that if you are not required, because the the change happened so fast, and it was into selling music. It used to rent the thing and all as the model started, and now when we see, it is all subscription. Now it is completely different. Whatever the Netflix and all these channels, whatever they are, the Amazon and all those things, Prime and all that, whatever they are doing, it's completely different. It's all subscription based, and there are a lot of inventions that are happening, innovations that are happening there also. So Netflix always believe that if your role is over, then rather than training people, rather hire new people. That was their model. But companies like TCS, they feel that they should train, because training has to be on. Lot of pharma companies also, they feel that even in manufacturing sector, they feel that training people and retaining them is much easier than every now and then hiring people. In small setups, it could be different. So every organization will have a different mix bag. But nevertheless, training and development at each level, and training is not only off the job training, when you have to go, it's on the job training also. So you're sent to assessment centers, there you are, so that is, there are offline methods and there are online methods of training. So which one we adopt also depends upon what kind of an organization we are. So staffing and leadership style makes a lot of difference when it comes to implementation of strategy. Then another thing is organization structure. So again, I would need your help here. What do we mean by division of labor? Anybody? These are principles of management. Quickly, you can either answer it or you can write in the chat box, whichever way. You can unmute yourself and you can also contribute. That way you will keep learning on the go. So what is division of labor? Anybody can speak about it. I'm sure at some point of time you might have read about principles of management. Yeah, Niraksha? What is division of labor? What comes to your mind when you hear about division of labor? Dividing the what? What will you divide?
Dividing the task or the work process according.
So it is, yes, you've answered it right. It is, as we can see, Shiba writes, assigning of tasks to different people who specializes in that particular, who are good at a particular thing, or they can be trained to become, it is either an inherent style skill or an acquired skill. It can be any which way. Either I acquire a knowledge or I already have it. So when it comes to recruitment and selection, what are we seeing? We are seeing what I already have it. When it is training and development, it is an acquired skill set. Both way it works. So it is assigning task. It is basically, if we have to say what is division of labor, then it is separation of any kind of work process that we have into small number of tasks. So we segregate into the number of tasks, we divide into a number of tasks, and then we see which person is going to assign which, will be assigned which task. So the whole process is divided into various tasks, and then each one is given a particular task to perform. It is basically when we have mass production of things and we are doing some assembly line productions, that is when this word division of labor initially started. So division of labor, generally when we divide, and the advantage of this was that division of labor actually increased the production and made us more efficient at whatever, like if you remember, we spoke about operational efficiencies in the beginning of the discussion. When we started our strategy discussion, we started with operational efficiency. What is operational efficiency? Quickly, what is operational efficiency?
Ma'am, is it more output?
It is more output because of what? Because of operating more output with less input, that is efficiency. Yes, yes, Ketiki says, but it is doing the same thing again and again in such a way that you become more efficient at something, isn't it? So if you do something for the first time, the effort that will be involved and the input that will be involved will be much more. But if you keep doing the things 10 times, 20 times, you achieve a operational efficiency by the fact that you're doing that same thing again and again. So you become more efficient at that. So division of labor and operational efficiency goes hand in hand. Okay, and that is why we got into this concept of division of labor. At the same time, if we talk about current scenario, division of labor is not so much of a division of labor. Of course, it helps me understand my role in the organization, that is there. But then I work in cross-functional teams. So today I'm working in some team 6 months. My project gets over in 6 months. I will be in some other team. So I will be assigned some other task, which if I'm good at it, I will do it. If I'm not, then I will learn it. So it is like that. So basically, to keep this discussion to division of labor only, it is breaking the process into small tasks and assigning people to do that, so that if they keep doing that again and again, they will achieve a operational efficiency. Another thing when it comes to organization structure is the shape of the organization. So any idea what are the different shapes of the organizations? It is the type of, basically the organization structure which is there in business, because it is very important. As we are having different marketing plans, we have different kinds of strategies. So to implement them, you need a very sturdy structure, a structure that fits into the strategy. So any idea as to what are these structures? So Ketaki says organizational matrix, and she puts the question mark.
Ma'am, structures can be like, there are different kind of structures that an organization can, like different organizations. So it can be matrix, it can be departmentalization, formalization.
Yes.
And
yeah. So what is formalization, Niriksha?
Like I don't remember the thing, but
okay. So what is centralization, Niriksha?
Centralization.
What is centralization? What is a centralized structure, Priyanka? What is a centralized structure?
Ma'am, everything is under the control of from the top hierarchy.
So for top few people, they have all the most of the power lies in their hands, and everybody just has to follow whatever they are assigned. So that is more like a centralized, all the decision making. Basically, when we talk about structures, it's about decision making. How much of decision making power that we have, how much of autonomy. What we mean by autonomy is the freedom, again, for decision making. How much of responsibility that a person would have. So all how much of accountability. What is accountability?
To be held responsible for whatever.
Accountability is responsibility. No. These are very, very important concepts, which you should know as a management student. What is the difference, or what is accountability?
You're held responsible for that particular thing, then it becomes accountable.
Let's not use this word responsible, okay, right? Because each has a different meaning. So what is accountability?
Ma'am, is it ownership?
Yeah.
Is it?
Ownership.
Okay. Accountability is basically answerability. That if a project is there or if any task is there, who is accountable for that? So it is said everybody's responsibility is nobody's responsibility. Responsibility is more like an ongoing thing. Each one has a responsibility to do whatever they have been assigned. But there may be one person who will be really accountable. So you are accountable for whatever responsibility you have. You have been assigned. You are accountable, you are answerable. Outcome आ रहा है कि नहीं आ रहा है, response आपका result आ रहा है कि नहीं आ रहा है. So you are assigned a responsibility and you are made accountable for that. Are you understanding? So responsibility is an ongoing thing. And after the task is finished, you are accountable for it. that whether you were able to accomplish that or not. So that is accountability. So each of the position in the organization, there is some power attached to it. There is some autonomy attached to it. There is some kind of freedom attached to it. There is some kind of responsibility and some kind of accountability that is attached to a particular, and that makes that particular thing, that what we call a post or a designation. These are the things which come with all that, with that particular thing. So a CEO's responsibility and accountability will be much different from a clerk in the organization, or a divisional head in the organization, or a functional head in the organization. Isn't it? We were talking about parenting organizations and we were talking about SBUs. So each SBU head will be held accountable for something, for their own division. They are not accountable and responsible for the entire thing. Of course, they are accountable they are responsible for the overall growth of the organization also. But the way CEO of the parenting company is responsible, department head or the divisional head, they are there for their particular setups. Of course, all contributes to the main objective. Is it clear to all? So when we talk about organization structures, there are various structures that we have. And like how Ketaki said, yes, matrix organization, these are hybrid organizations, hybrid structures. Basically, when you're working in IT projects, they are more project related. So when we are working on a project, we work in a cross-functional way. So there will be from various functional departments, various people will come together and they will start working in a cross-functional way. So the talent and the expertise comes from all the divisions, and then from various functional departments, they come together, and that is a matrix organization. But these days, then somebody has written vertical and horizontal organizations. I would say these days there are more lean structures. What are there? Flat structures. Have you heard about flat structures? What are flat structures?
Ma'am, it is more lean way of controlling the things. It's more of decentralized way the organization operates, wherein there is no cabin system or anything. It's more of like everybody sit together and it's open policy wherein everybody can go and they can talk about the things. So
these
there
are
is no.
there is less of hierarchy.
Yes, yes.
So earlier on, the work used to be slow because the file used to keep moving from tables to tables. But that was affecting the efficiency of the organization. So instead of 4 layers, or instead of asking 4 people, if I only have to take permission from one person, the work becomes easy, so to say, in the layman's language. And that is why we go for more flat structures, lean structures, where it is not centralized. The power making, the decision making power is not centralized, it is decentralized. Sometime we will do the organization structure which Hindustan Liver, Unilever is, they have made a very, very beautiful structure, the way they are operating and how their whole strategy of premiumization and localization have worked in a big way. Today, I don't have time, but maybe in the next lecture, we will do that in detail, because that is one company, or for that matter, even ITC, which we should see that how they look, how they have gone about, and they have really done a very good job with that. Then comes the distribution of power. So what do we understand with power here? You can write in the distribution of power.
Well, that is the decision making abilities each employee will have.
Yes. Okay. What do you mean by power? When you have power, what are you able to do? Yes, decision making is definitely a part of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody This is the word.
Again,
What should I
being
say?
accountable for the decision.
See, power basically when you have, then you are able. It's ability to delegate tasks. I have the power to delegate. I have the power to take decisions. And everybody has a certain power which comes inherently with their sort of whatever designation or whatever job wherever we are in the hierarchy, in the organization structure. So power is basically the ability, and it flows from top to down. That is always there. But these days, when we are working in teams, it is more a collaborative approach. So it is not only top down, it is down and up also, where because we keep having these meetings, the brainstorming sessions and all, where everybody's view is considered. Everybody view is taken. Considered and all is different thing, but at least it is taken. So gone are the days when few people only used to take. Of course, there are plenty of decisions which only few people still take, and that has to be that way. But when it comes to power, it is the decision making and the power to delegate. These are very important words, which we should understand as management students. Okay, so that is about structure. Then comes the reward system. I think this really is a big motivator and something that really takes the strategy forward. And if this is not designed the way it should be, then most of the strategies cannot take off. So what do we mean by reward system? It is compensation. It can come in terms of promotions, special awards. It can be job design. I have seen organizations, like Ashok Leyland. If you see their case study, in 2009, 2010, then when they were completely revamping themselves, there was a time when the company was in a state of flux. And that is a time when the company's CEO of the company, he told the employees that there is going to be, you will have to do away with your compensation to in a particular percentage. So here I'm not talking about how they were rewarded. The reward came later. But when the company is seeing a crisis, and if the employees were asked to forgo, and most of the employees were ready to forgo in the larger interest of the company. And when that period of 2-3, it was complete transformation that took place, when they started coming into trucks, and they had a lot of new things that they did, and now company is really doing well, and it was in 2012, 2013 when the company started picking up, and that is the time when they were rewarded. There were special rewards that were given. There were special awards that were given. The people were overcompensated for whatever who showed their loyalty. So it all, these are very crucial things when it comes to, and it shows the, it all starts from employee engagement. How you engage with your employees. How do you build up trust in your employees? Ultimately, at the end of the day, we are all human beings. If dealt with empathy and if dealt with compassion, what your emotional intelligence teaches you, somewhere it helps to form the entire culture of the organization. If we know, even if we are giving a salary cut, but if we know that there is some long term thing that we are looking at, and if we have had a history, most of the people, they are able to take it in a stride. But if we know that we are making fool of people, then nobody is a fool here. Everybody understands more than what we understand. Earlier on, there only used to be a salary, but now I'm sure all of you know about. So what are the new things that are happening in the reward system? I'm sure everybody can Must have experienced people who have worked. So can we name few? Reward systems. There are, of course, monetary and non-monetary rewards. Non-financial is recognition and training. Yes, very true, Shiva. Recognition, achievements, group trips. Okay. At the end, when you achieve something, I think that is what Daisy means. That when we achieve at the end of the day, then you have.
Yeah, ma'am. Like literally, like for example, in ONGC they do it. Like
Many organizations they do like that. Flexible timing, non-financial in COVID times. Flexible timing. Flexi timing is again a yes. It's not a, I mean, direct reward system, but yeah, somewhere. Certificate or trophy of recognitions, yes. What are monetary ones? Apart from salary, what are gift vouchers? Okay, we give Sodexos and we give so many other things to our employees, the vouchers. ESOPs, yes. Do we know what are ESOPs? Employee stock options. International trips is what Shilpi writes. ESOPs we give bonus to our people. We get their insurance done. That is also a big benefit. Medical insurance that we do for them. The way we design their jobs, that is also a reward system. The way the jobs are designed, the job design. Do you know what comes in job design? What do you mean by job design? Janvi says performance based incentives. Very true, Janvi. Job design as per the competency of the employee. Yes. So we decide upon when we job design is basically about the kind of skill set that is required for a particular job. So you identify the skill set that is required. You identify the task which are associated with it, and then you put a right person there. Then you also have the requisite power that is given, the decision making, the autonomy which is given to that particular, assigned uh, to that task, and then of course the feedback is there. So that is how a job is designed. So the way the job is designed and to whom it is given, that also goes a long way. Okay, so that is about the reward system. Decision making process. This is, we are only touching here in a very very brief way, but I think we can have a whole subject as decision making. I think you people, I don't know now you have it or not, but there was decision making, the entire subject was there, because it requires a lot of, these days when it comes to decision making, earlier on it was more of intuition. Still I feel that there is, in fact in Harvard Business Review the other day I was reading, I don't know where that book is, that the entire journal was about um, how how intuition plays a role in decision making. Do you think intuition plays a role in decision making? Sixth sense plays a role in decision making. Has anybody experienced? Ujjwala and Shivani says yes. A resounding yes to that.
So, ma'am, in my personal life, many a times I have taken these intuitive decisions and they have worked very well.
They have worked because those decisions were made from the heart, isn't it? So mind chatter was just kept a little, took a little side, and yes, I think heart-led decisions are the best decisions. But having said that, for the there is a lot of whenever the more structured way is more of planning and control, which is there. There is always a planning which is required, especially in strategy. Why? Because the stakes that are involved, the resources, because there is always a resource allocation that has to be done. The budgets have to be made. The entire organization has to work towards it. So strategic planning is very, very important when it comes to any kind of decision making. And what do you mean by strategic planning? I don't think I should wait for this answer. This is going back to my first lecture, and the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the eighth, and the 10th. So, what do you mean by strategic planning? Come on, quickly. What do you mean by the word strategic? When I pick up something, I have to forgo something. What do you mean by that? Yes, Priyanka?
Trade-offs.
Trade-offs. Making the choices. Keep making the choices. And that is where planning is there. Because I don't, and why do I make choices? Why is there a trade-off? Because I have to create a uniqueness. I have to create a right strategic fit. And therefore I have to keep making trade-offs. So therefore, when it comes to decision making, there has to be planning, there has to be resource allocation, and there has to be resource allocation. Then we have to, once the resource allocation is there, we have to allocate the resources, and after that, integrate the roles and the departments. There comes the your job design, job role, your organization structure, and all that comes into the picture. And then is the information systems. When we talk about information systems, we are talking about MIS. We are talking about reporting. We are talking about feedback, because it is a continuous process of review which is required. What I plan once is true for that time, but that needs to keep being reviewed, and it needs to be kept, current with my competitors, because we are operating in a hyper competitive world. And therefore this decision making process also needs to time and again it needs to be reviewed and it needs to be seen. Okay, so who are strategy implementers? Implementing and executing strategy involves a company's whole management team and all employees. This looks like a very simple thing, but I'm telling you, that is where the whole crux of strategy lies. If I, like I said earlier also, if I do not communicate with my employees, like I'll give you an example. If you go to a bank, the moment you enter the bank, earlier on, a bank used to be like you used to do some financial transactions and used to come back. If you had to get your insurance done, then you were going to some other building. If you had to take loans, you were going to some other building. But now it is a one-stop shop. Now the strategy of the bank is that it is a one-stop shop for all the finance related solutions. So what do you do for that? I basically train and communicate this objective, this vision to each and every person. So the person standing at the door also knows, as a security person, of course he's guarding and he's a security person, but he will also know certain things, where to direct you, how to direct you, and certain basic things even he will be able to, like how you have to fill up those small slips, and where you have to stand in the queue and whatever. So the strategy implementators, implementers, you don't have to, the idea should not be that it is only the top brass who's doing that. No, the decision making may be, the designing may be done by them or by the few people, but implementers are the everybody to the last person in the organization who helps in strategic implementation. Top level managers, of course, lead the process of the major, initiatives, but each one is involved in strategy implementation. So what top executives have to do in leading the implementation process? First and foremost, communicate the case for change. Most of the problems happen here when we do not communicate, because strategic implementation generally involves change. And trust me, change management is, why does change management become difficult? Any answers to that? Why?
Because on the organizations, like they have the resistance to change, because individual resistance also come, and then organizational resistance also come, because it takes a lot big decisions to make, to create those changes.
Organizations basically are human beings, is the manpower. And for us to make a slight change in our schedule, also so much of resistance comes from all the entire being of ours. So the main resistance, it is easier said than done. I'm telling you, most of the strategies fail because of lack of communication, and if a proper consensus is not built. So many people are against. Have you ever witnessed this kind of thing in any of the organization? When any small thing was told and it was resisted or anything like that? Yes, Shivani, you're nodding your head.
So, ma'am, if we talk about new policy coming up for flexi hours, so that is something that has happened in one of the organizations that I was associated with. And the old, I mean, like the people who were experienced, they were punctual, but the new generation, they wanted some kind of flexi hours. And HR came up with this thing that flexi hours will be there. And it become really, really difficult, at times for the senior managers and VP level people to wait for the executives to come in and then start with the meetings and all. And there were a lot of issues that happened because of that. There was a small change, that is from 8:30 to 9:30, person can come up anytime. And then it was like the entire thing has to be changed, and proper communication went, and then only it was able to take off. It was able to they were able to establish this particular norm that flexi hours will remain. There
All
was
of
a
us
huge.
here sitting here, we are very, I mean, there is a basic no technical know-how. That is why we are on Zoom today. But there was a time when computers were introduced in the organization. I can't even tell you the kind of resistance that came from most of the senior brass. Not ready to learn. Not ready to learn because there was an inherent fear that whether they will be able to. And the thing is, why we should change, because we have worked in a particular way. It's a very small thing. It's a very simple thing. So this whole thing of, and that is when we talk about anything, any big or small change that we get into the organization, there is always a resistance. Always a resistance. And but of course there are cases when the resistance is less and when the resistance is more. So it's always easy if you build a consensus as to how to proceed with the whole thing, and then create an environment of enthusiasm. if in my, I always go by this, if in my mind I am not excited about what I'm doing, I won't be able to enthuse people. If I am not convinced about what I'm saying, I may be operating from less knowledge. I may have more knowledgeable people in my class or the people I'm interacting with. It's okay. It's absolutely fine. But what I am saying, whatever little I know, if I am coming out of complete conviction, and how does conviction come? If I've experienced that thing myself. If it's only theory, then it's only theory. But if I've experienced that myself, so if I believe in what I'm saying, in what I'm doing, and that belief is very much, then only that enthusiasm will be there. So, to arouse enthusiasm for the strategy, to turn the implementation process into a complete company wide, and I'm sure people who have worked, they must have seen these changes in their organizations, when how they were implemented. Then empower the yes, resistance to SAP application in the organization. I was about to say that. Then the ERP and the SAP were, oh, kind of resistance that came in. There are always people there is a few, there are few people who are converts, but there are many, or there are many who get converted, and there are few who are not converts, and those people who are not converted, they are the ones who create the entire atmosphere. They try to change the entire atmosphere and maybe spoil the entire atmosphere. So I always say, whenever you have to bring about the change, then at least single out few people who agree with you, and then use them as a as people who can facilitate the entire change process. Of course, empowering the subordinates to keep the process moving, that is important. Establish measures of progress and deadlines, again very important, milestones, and keep reviewing it. These days we have various mechanisms. We have balanced scorecard. I don't know whether you have that as a topic now or not, but balanced scorecard is something that till last year we used to have that as a proper, that is a very good strategy implementation tool. Balanced scorecard, where the strategy is actually mapped on all the levels. You have financial perspectives, you have non-financial perspectives, you have training and development, you have everything customer perspective, and within that also there are various parameters which are there. So if it is financial perspective, what are the parameters which are there for your strategy? Maybe the profit of revenue is of course there, but to arrive at that profit and revenue, what are we looking at? So are we looking at the so there are various ratios which are there. So if for each of the perspective, there are various measures, there are various progress lights which are there, which needs to be measured from time and again. And balance scorecard is one of the tools which really helps. Reward those who achieve implementation milestones. It talks about our reward system that we spoke about. Of course, direct resources to the right places. That is very important. Resources which are and all kinds of resources, whether we are talking about money, the capital, whether we are talking about manpower, when we are talking about anything, machines, anything, whatever we are. So optimum utilization of all, and how they can be directed to the right place at the right time. And personally, lead strategic change process and drive for operating excellence, not leave it to people. Everybody has to feel the ownership, everybody has to take the ownership, everybody has to feel the belongingness to the organization. Then only these kind of changes can take place. So little idea now about strategic implementation. We will be, I think, Ujjwala, are we having a next lecture, one more lecture?
Yes, ma'am. This Saturday, you said okay, no? So we will have Saturday 8 to 10.
Yeah, so I will try and finish as much as possible. Whatever I finish till then, that you take it for your presentation. Okay, so please don't stress yourself too much, though we will try to do it as much as possible on Saturday itself, which is relevant to you and which is this thing, and happily do your presentations. Okay, don't stress too much about all this. Chalo then, see you on Saturday morning at 8 a.m.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
Ujjwala,
Thank
anything else that I need to speak about?
No, ma'am. Now I think you've said in the beginning. No? And if any doubts are there, I'll just message you.
Any queries? I'm traveling this week, so you can put your messages or whatever, and
Yeah.
then Saturday or in between, I will see whenever we can connect. Okay.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Else, I will tell you whatever it is on Saturday itself.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks a
you,
lot.
ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
To all.